The grand hall of the Velkari Palace fell silent as Queen Ilyana stared at the message on her communication device. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the words again. Around her, the court officials whispered nervously, sensing something important had happened. "Your Majesty, what is it?" High Advisor Minho asked, stepping closer to the throne. Ilyana looked up, her purple eyes wide with disbelief. "A ship is approaching. It carries my daughter's genetic signature." The hall erupted in shocked voices. Commander Junho, head of the Royal Guard, stepped forward quickly. "That's impossible. Princess Nara has been dead for 15 years. Someone is playing a cruel trick." "The scanners do not lie," Ilyana said quietly. "It is her signature. Exactly hers. 15 years ago, Princess Nara had taken a small royal ship into the Karath Nebula for a diplomatic mission. She never returned. The nebula was filled with void storms, massive electromagnetic waves that destroyed any ship's electronics. Hundreds of rescue missions had been sent. None found any trace of her. Eventually, the entire empire had mourned her death. Now the impossible was happening. "Prepare the landing bay," Ilyana commanded, "and summon everyone to the throne room. If my daughter truly returns, the entire court will witness it." Within an hour, the massive throne room was packed with nobles, officials, and guards. Everyone wore their finest clothes, but their faces showed confusion and fear. How could someone return from the void storms? What kind of creature would emerge from that ship? Ilyana sat on her throne, trying to appear calm. Inside, her heart raced. Was it really her daughter? Or something else wearing her daughter's face? The great doors opened slowly. Two figures walked through. The first was unmistakably Nara. She had her mother's purple eyes and the distinctive silver markings on her blue skin that marked Velkari royalty. She was older now, a woman instead of the young girl who had disappeared. She wore simple traveling clothes instead of royal robes, and her hair was cut short in a practical style. But it was the second figure that made the entire room gasp. Walking beside Nara was a human male. He was tall for his species, with black hair and dark eyes. He wore plain clothes and carried a worn travel bag. Most shocking of all, he walked beside the princess as an equal, not behind her as a servant would. Humans were known throughout the galaxy. They had only recently developed faster-than-light travel and were considered primitive by most advanced species. Their technology was crude, their ships slow, and their empire small. They were not dangerous, just unimpressive. What was one doing beside a Velkari princess? Nara walked forward confidently until she stood before the throne. Then she dropped to one knee, and the human did the same beside her. "Mother," Nara said, her voice strong and clear, "I have returned home." Ilyana rose from her throne and walked down the steps. She reached out and touched her daughter's face as if making sure she was real. Tears filled her eyes. "My daughter," she whispered. How is this possible?" Nara stood and embraced her mother. For a moment, the entire court watched in silence as the queen held her lost child. Finally, Ilyana pulled back and looked at the human. "And who is this?" "This is Daiho," Nara said, gesturing to the human who stood respectfully but without fear. "He saved my life. Without him, I would never have come home." "A human?" Commander Junho spoke loudly from his position near the throne. "Your Highness, you were lost in the void storms. No technology can survive there. How could a primitive human possibly help you?" Daiho's expression didn't change, but several people noticed his jaw tighten slightly at the word primitive. Nara turned to face Junho and the assembled court. "That is exactly how he helped me, Commander. His technology is what you call primitive, and that is precisely why it worked." Confused murmurs spread through the crowd. Minho stepped forward, his calculating eyes studying both Nara and the human. "Princess, perhaps you should explain," he said smoothly. "We are all eager to understand this miracle." Nara nodded. "I will tell you everything. But first I ask that Daiho be treated as an honored guest of our empire. He spent 15 years helping me survive and escape. He asked for nothing in return. He deserves our respect." Queen Ilyana looked at the human for a long moment. Daiho met her gaze calmly, without arrogance but also without submission. Finally she nodded. "Any friend of my daughter is welcome in my home. Daiho of Earth, you have my gratitude for returning her to me. You will be given quarters in the palace and treated as a royal guest." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Daiho said. His voice was deep and he spoke the Velkari language with a strange accent, but clearly enough. "I am honored." "Now," Ilyana said, returning to her throne, "tell us your story. How did you survive the impossible? The court gathered closer as Nara began her tale. She described how her ship had entered the void storms and immediately lost all power. The electromagnetic interference had fried every circuit, every computer, every system. Her ship had crashed on a small rocky planet deep inside the nebula. I was badly injured, Nara continued. My ship was dead. I thought I would die there, alone in the dark. She glanced at Deho, and something in her expression made several court members exchange knowing looks. Then Deho found me. His exploration ship was also caught in the nebula, but his ship still worked. I didn't understand how at first. His vessel was old, built with what we would consider ancient technology, mechanical engines, manual controls, analog instruments, things that don't rely on computer chips or complex electronics. The void storms destroy advanced technology, Deho added quietly, but they can't hurt simple machines. My ship was built for exploring dangerous areas, using backup systems that would work even if all the electronics failed. Junho scoffed. So you survived through luck and outdated equipment. We survived through adaptability, Nara said firmly. Deho rescued me and healed my injuries. Then over the next 15 years, we worked together to build a ship that could escape the nebula. We combined Velkari scientific knowledge with human mechanical engineering. We created something neither of our species had made before. 15 years? Minho asked sharply. You spent 15 years alone with this human? The implication in his voice was clear, and several people in the court looked scandalized. Nara's eyes flashed with anger. I spent 15 years learning that intelligence and worth are not measured by how advanced your computers are, she said coldly. Deho taught me more about real problem solving than I ever learned in our finest academies. He showed me that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. And yes, he became my closest friend. The throne room buzzed with whispered conversations. A princess, friends with a human? It was unheard of. Worse, she seemed to respect him, even admire him. Queen Ilyana raised her hand for silence. We will hear more of this story in private council. For now, let us celebrate the return of Princess Nara. Prepare a feast for tonight. My daughter has come home. As the court began to disperse, Junho approached Minho quietly. This is wrong. A human here in the palace, with influence over the princess? We should investigate him. Minho nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving Deho's back as the human followed Nara out of the throne room. Indeed, there is more to this story than a simple rescue. No human would spend 15 years helping a Velkari princess without wanting something in return. We must discover what he truly wants before it's too late. Neither of them noticed young Hyejin, a junior court member, watching them with a thoughtful expression. She had seen how the princess looked at the human, and how he had remained calm despite the court's obvious disdain. She wondered if perhaps the older generation was wrong about humans. Perhaps there was more to them than anyone realized. The private council chamber was much smaller than the throne room, but somehow felt more intimidating. Queen Ilyana sat at the head of a long table, with Nara on her right and Deho beside her. Around the table sat Commander Junho, High Advisor Minho, and 3 other senior officials. Guards stood at every door. Deho noticed how Junho kept his hand near his weapon, watching him constantly. The human remained calm, his hands folded on the table in front of him. He had survived 15 years in one of the most dangerous regions of space. A few suspicious aliens didn't frighten him. Tell us everything, Ilyana said to her daughter. From the beginning. Nara took a deep breath. My ship entered the Korath Nebula as planned. The moment we hit the first void storm, everything died. Lights, engines, life support, everything. The ship started falling toward the nearest planet, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. She closed her eyes, remembering. The crash was terrible. My pilot didn't survive. I was trapped in the wreckage with broken bones and internal injuries. The emergency beacon was dead like everything else. I knew no one would find me. I started making peace with dying. Then I heard metal being torn away from outside the ship, she continued. Someone was cutting through the hull. I thought maybe I was hallucinating from pain and lack of oxygen. Then I saw him. She looked at Deho with obvious affection. This human in an old-style pressure suit pulling me out of the wreckage. He carried me to his ship and put me in his medical bay. I'm not a doctor, Deho said quietly, but my ship had a good medical database and I'd done emergency medical training. I set her bones, stopped the internal bleeding, and kept her stable until she could heal. Human medical knowledge saved a Velkari? Minho asked skeptically. Our physiology is quite different. Biology is biology, Deho replied. The basics are the same. Stop the bleeding, stabilize the patient, treat the symptoms. I learned about Velkari physiology from her once she could talk, and adjusted the treatment accordingly. He saved my life with equipment our people would consider museum pieces, Nara added. Mechanical scanners, chemical medications, and simple surgical tools. But they worked because they didn't need computer chips or advanced electronics. Ilyana leaned forward. And then what happened? Surely you tried to leave. Nara nodded. Of course. But Deho's ship wasn't designed for long-range travel. It was an exploration vessel, meant to work from a base ship that would stay outside the nebula. When the void storms hit, his base ship left to avoid damage, planning to return. But the storms got worse and they couldn't come back. He was stranded too. So we were trapped together, Deho said. Two people from different species, stuck on a planet inside a region of space that destroys any ship that tries to enter. For the first year, we just survived, Nara continued. The planet had breathable air and some edible plants. Deho's ship had enough power to keep us alive, but not enough to escape the nebula. We rationed everything carefully. You lived together for a year? Junio asked, his voice sharp with suspicion. Alone? We survived together, Nara corrected him coldly. Deho was a perfect gentleman. He gave me privacy, treated me with respect, and never once took advantage of the situation. He could have demanded anything from me, and I would have had no choice. Instead, he treated me as an equal partner. She paused, letting that sink in. Several of the council members looked uncomfortable. After that first year, we started planning. Nara went on. We realized that we needed to combine our knowledge. I knew Velkari science and technology. Deho knew human mechanical engineering and practical problem-solving. The plan was simple in theory, Deho explained. Build a ship that could navigate the void storms. It would need to use mechanical controls and analog systems for the basic functions, but include Velkari power systems and engines for speed. A hybrid. Building it was not simple, Nara said with a slight smile. It took us 14 more years. We had to mine materials from the planet. We salvaged what we could from both crashed ships. We built tools to build other tools. We failed dozens of times. Her expression grew more serious. During those years, I learned something important. Humans don't give up. Deho would work all day on a problem, fail, and then start again the next morning with a new idea. He taught me that advanced technology isn't always the answer. Sometimes you need creativity and determination. One of our biggest breakthroughs came from thinking like a human, she continued. We were struggling with navigation. All Velkari navigation uses quantum computers to calculate paths. But quantum computers couldn't survive the void storms. Deho suggested we use star charts and visual navigation, like ancient Earth sailors used to cross oceans. You navigated by looking out the window? Minho asked in disbelief. Essentially, yes, Deho confirmed. We created mechanical instruments to measure star positions and calculate our course manually. It's slower and less precise than a computer, but it works. The void storms can't destroy human eyesight or mechanical calculators. We also used what Deho called dead reckoning, Nara added. Mechanical gyroscopes to track our orientation, mechanical clocks to measure time, and basic mathematics to calculate position. Simple but effective. Ilyana shook her head in wonder. And this worked? You escaped the Korath Nebula using ancient navigation techniques? Not easily, Nara admitted. It took us 3 attempts. The first 2 times we got lost and had to return to the planet. But on the 3rd try, we made it through. 40 days of careful navigation, constant course corrections, and some luck. But we made it. The princess did most of the flying, Deho added. She's a natural pilot. I just handled the mechanical systems and navigation calculations. Nara smiled at him. We made a good team. The look they exchanged was not lost on the council members. Yunho's face darkened with anger while Minho's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. You seem to have become quite close, Minho observed carefully. 15 years together would create strong bonds. Yes, it would, Nara said firmly. Deho is my friend. He is also the most resourceful, intelligent, and honorable person I have ever met. The fact that he is human is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant, Junho said harshly. He is an alien. From a primitive species. You are a Velkari princess. There are proprieties to consider. Nara's eyes flashed dangerously. Are you suggesting something inappropriate happened, Commander? I'm suggesting that 15 years alone might cloud one's judgment, Junho replied. This human may have manipulated you emotionally. It's possible you don't see the situation clearly. Before Nara could respond angrily, Daiho spoke up quietly. Commander Junho, I understand your concern. In your position, I would be suspicious too. A stranger appears with the princess after 15 years. It looks questionable. He met Junho's gaze steadily. But I didn't manipulate her. I helped her because it was the right thing to do. I stayed with her because leaving her alone would have been cruel. I worked with her to escape because we both wanted to go home. And I came here because she asked me to. And I consider her a friend. How convenient that you befriend a princess. Minho said softly, and now you are a guest in the palace. You have access to the royal family. What do you want from us, human? Daiho leaned back in his chair. I want nothing. I don't need wealth. I don't want power. I already have everything important to me. My ship, my freedom, and a friend who I trust. If Princess Nara decides she wants me to leave tomorrow, I'll go. No arguments, no demands, then why come here at all? Junyo demanded. Because she asked me to, Daiho said simply. And because after 15 years together, I wanted to make sure she got home safely. The journey from the nebula to here was dangerous. I wasn't going to let her make it alone. Nara reached over and squeezed Daiho's hand briefly. See, Mother? This is what I mean. He doesn't think about himself first. He thinks about what's right, what's needed. That's a human quality I wish more Velkari possessed. The council members exchanged uncomfortable glances. The princess was praising human qualities over Velkari ones. This was troubling. Queen Ilyana watched her daughter carefully. She saw maturity there that hadn't existed 15 years ago. She saw confidence, strength, and certainty. Whatever had happened in that nebula, it had changed Nara into a leader. I believe you, Ilyana finally said. Both of you. But the court will not accept this easily. Many will question your story. Some will see conspiracies where none exist. You must be prepared for that. I am, Nara said firmly, and I'm prepared to prove that human methods have value. Tomorrow I want to present our hybrid technology to the Science Academy. Let them test it. Let them see what we created. That might be wise, Minho agreed, though his tone suggested he didn't think it would go well. Proof would silence many doubters. Then it's settled, Ilyana decided. Tomorrow the Academy will examine your technology. Tonight we feast and celebrate my daughter's return. Whatever comes next, today is for joy. As the meeting ended and people left the chamber, Junho pulled Minho aside. We need to investigate this human thoroughly, Junho whispered. His story is too convenient. Minho nodded slowly. Indeed, but be careful, Commander. The princess clearly trusts him. If we move against him openly, she will defend him. We must be subtle. Neither noticed Hyejin standing in the corridor outside, having heard everything. She walked away quickly, wondering if she should warn the princess. The Velkari Science Academy was the most prestigious research institution in the Empire. Its halls had produced countless breakthroughs in physics, engineering, and biology. Its scientists considered themselves the finest minds in the galaxy. Today, those minds gathered in the main testing laboratory to examine a human's work. Daiho stood beside his hybrid ship in the massive testing bay, explaining its systems to a group of increasingly skeptical scientists. Nara stood beside him, her arms crossed, watching the scientists with growing frustration. As you can see, Daiho explained patiently, the core systems use mechanical controls. These levers control thrust. This wheel steers the ship. These gauges show speed, altitude, and fuel levels. All mechanical, nothing electronic. An elderly scientist named Dr. Kwan sniffed dismissively. Yes. Very primitive. We used such systems thousands of years ago. What could they possibly offer us now? They work in void storms, Nara said sharply. Your advanced systems don't. That seems like a significant advantage. In one very specific situation, Kwan replied. Hardly useful for general applications. Test it, Daiho said calmly. We brought recordings of the void storm readings from inside the nebula. Recreate those conditions and test any Velkari ship against mine. See which one survives. The scientists exchanged glances. Finally, Kwan nodded. Very well. We will conduct a proper test, but don't expect miracles. For the next several hours, the scientists set up electromagnetic generators around a Velkari military shuttle and Daiho's hybrid ship. The generators would create conditions similar to a void storm, though much weaker. A crowd gathered to watch. Word had spread through the palace about the test. Nobles, officials, and curious courtiers filled the observation galleries above the testing bay. Among them was Hyejin, standing with her brother Taiyang. "Do you think it will work?" Taiyang asked quietly. "I don't know," Hyejin admitted. "But I think the real test is whether our people can accept it if it does work." Down in the testing bay, Queen Ilyana arrived with her personal guard. Commander Junho stood behind her, his expression dark. High Advisor Minho stood to the Queen's other side, his face carefully neutral. "Begin the test," Quan announced. The electromagnetic generators powered up. Immediately, warning lights flashed on the Valkyrie shuttle. Its computers started showing errors. Within 30 seconds, every system had crashed. The shuttle went completely dark and silent. Daiho's hybrid ship, however, continued running normally. Its mechanical instruments showed no change. The engine hummed steadily. The scientists stared in silence. The crowd in the galleries began murmuring. Junho's hands clenched into fists. "Increase the intensity," Quan ordered. His voice tight. The generators powered up higher, creating electromagnetic interference that would have destroyed any conventional ship systems. The Valkyrie shuttle remained dead. Daiho's ship continued working perfectly. "This proves nothing," Quan said loudly. "This is a controlled environment, not a real void storm." "Then come with us," Nara challenged. "We'll take you to the edge of the Korath Nebula. You can test it in real conditions." Quan paled slightly. "That's unnecessarily dangerous. But it would prove the point conclusively," Daiho added. "If you don't trust lab tests, we can demonstrate in the field. I've made the trip several times now. I'm confident in the ship's capabilities." Minho stepped forward smoothly. "That won't be necessary. The test clearly shows the hybrid design has advantages in very specific circumstances. However, we must consider the practical applications. How many ships would we need to convert? What would it cost? Is it worth redesigning our entire fleet for a threat we rarely encounter? That's not the point," Nara argued. "The point is that human engineering methods have value. They can solve problems our advanced technology cannot. We should be learning from this, not dismissing it." "Princess, with respect," Quan said coldly. "We have been advancing technology for thousands of years. Humans discovered space travel a few decades ago. I hardly think they have lessons to teach us." "Then you're a fool," Nara said bluntly. The crowd gasped. The scientist looked shocked. Quan's face turned dark with anger. "Your Highness," Quan said stiffly, "I understand you've been through a traumatic experience, but there's no need for insults." "It's not an insult. It's an observation," Nara replied. "You're so proud of your advanced knowledge that you can't see the value in simple solutions." "That's foolishness." Queen Ilyana raised her hand. "Enough. The test has demonstrated the hybrid design's effectiveness. The Academy will study the technology further and prepare a detailed report. This meeting is over." As people began to leave, Junho approached Daiho with 2 guards behind him. "The Queen has requested you remain in the palace for the next few days," Junho said formally. "For your safety, of course. There are some in the Empire who don't trust humans. We wouldn't want any unfortunate incidents." Daiho understood immediately. This wasn't protection. It was imprisonment. They were keeping him where they could watch him. "Of course, Commander," he said calmly. "Whatever the Queen requires. I'll stay with him," Nara announced immediately. "If Daiho must remain in the palace, I do too." "Princess, that's not necessary," Junho began. "I insist," Nara said firmly. "Daiho is my guest and my responsibility. Where he goes, I go." Junho looked to Minho, who gave a slight nod. "As you wish, Your Highness." Over the next few days, something strange began happening in the palace. Young courtiers and junior officials started approaching Daiho with questions. They asked about human technology, human culture, and human problem-solving methods. Many of them were frustrated with the older generation's rigid thinking. Hyejin was among them. She brought her brother Taeyang and several friends to meet Daiho in the palace gardens one afternoon. "We've been reading about human history," Hyejin said excitedly. "Your species has overcome incredible challenges with limited resources. How do you do it?" Daiho thought for a moment. "Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Because we don't have advanced technology, we have to be creative. We have to think differently. Sometimes that leads to solutions that high technology misses." "Can you give us an example?" Taeyang asked. "Sure," Daiho said. "When humans first went to space, we didn't have powerful computers. So we used mathematics and human calculation. We planned everything carefully and used simple machines that we understood completely. When something broke, we could fix it because the systems weren't too complex. He gestured to the palace around them. Your technology is amazing, but it's so complex that when it fails, you need specialists to fix it. Human technology fails too, but usually we can repair it with basic tools and knowledge. That's not because we're better. It's because we keep things simple by necessity. So you're saying there's value in simplicity? Hyejin asked thoughtfully. Sometimes, Daeho confirmed. Not always. Advanced technology is wonderful when it works, but having backup systems that don't rely on that advanced technology can save your life. Princess Nara and I would have died in the nebula if we'd only relied on high technology. This way of thinking fascinated the younger Velkari. They had grown up being taught that progress meant more complexity, more advanced systems, better computers. The idea that sometimes simpler was better seemed revolutionary, but their interest didn't go unnoticed. Minho and Junho watched with growing concern as more young people gathered around the human. He's spreading his influence, Junho said angrily, turning the younger generation against our ways. He's not doing anything, Minho corrected thoughtfully. They're coming to him because they're curious. That's actually more dangerous. If we ban them from seeing him, we make him more appealing. If we arrest him, the princess will cause a scandal. Then what do we do? Junho demanded. Minho smiled coldly. We wait for him to make a mistake. Everyone does eventually, and when he does, we'll be ready. What neither of them knew was that Minho had already begun planning something more direct. He had contacted certain groups in the Empire who feared change and distrusted aliens. He had started spreading rumors about Daiho, suggesting the human had manipulated the princess, that he was a spy for Earth, that he planned to steal Velkari technology. These rumors spread through the Empire's communication networks, growing more elaborate with each retelling. Anti-human sentiment, which had always existed quietly, began to grow louder. One evening, as Daiho walked through the palace gardens, 3 masked figures attacked him. They came from the shadows with energy weapons, clearly intending to kill. Daiho moved fast. Years of surviving in dangerous conditions had taught him to stay alert. He dodged the first shot, grabbed a garden tool and used it to deflect the second. Then he ran, using the garden's paths and structures for cover. The attackers chased him, firing wildly. Daiho led them away from the palace's inhabited areas, not wanting anyone else to get hurt. He was almost to the guard station when one blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He hit the ground hard, pain exploding through his body. The attackers approached, weapons raised for the killing shot. Then Nara appeared, moving like lightning. She had heard the weapons fire and come running. She disarmed the first attacker with a martial arts move Daiho had never seen before. The second attacker fired at her, but 3 weeks after the assassination attempt, Daiho stood in the palace command center, staring at a screen showing a terrible situation. 70 Velkari researchers were trapped in a space station at the edge of a void storm field. The station was slowly being pulled into the storm, and its systems were already failing. 3 rescue missions have tried to reach them, Commander Junho explained reluctantly. All 3 ships lost power as soon as they got close. We had to pull them back before they were destroyed. We're out of options. Queen Ileana looked exhausted. She had been in the command center for 18 hours, trying to find a solution. We can't just let them die. There must be some way to reach them. There is, Daiho said quietly. My ship can do it. Everyone turned to look at him. His shoulder was still healing from the attack, bandaged under his shirt. Absolutely not, Junho said immediately. This is a Velkari matter. We don't need human help. Then those 70 people will die, Daiho replied calmly. My hybrid ship is designed specifically for this situation. It can navigate close to void storms without losing power. I can reach that station. He's right, Nara said. She had been standing beside her mother the whole time. This is exactly what the hybrid design is for. We should at least try, Minho stepped forward. And if the human fails? If he leads a rescue mission and everyone dies, including himself? The Empire would be blamed for trusting a human with Velkari lives. If we do nothing, they definitely die, Daiho pointed out. If I try, there's at least a chance. Isn't some chance better than none? Queen Ileana looked at her daughter. Can he do this? Yes, Nara said without hesitation. I've flown with him through worse. If anyone can reach that station, it's Daiho. Then I'm going with him, Junho announced suddenly. Everyone looked at the commander in surprise. He stood stiffly, his face hard. If this mission is happening, I will be there to observe, and to ensure the human doesn't sabotage it. You still think I'm a threat? Taeho asked. I think you're convenient, Junho replied coldly. You show up at the perfect time with the perfect skills. Now you offer to be a hero. It's all very suspicious. Commander, that's enough, Queen Ilyana said tiredly. But you may accompany the mission if you wish. Who else will go? I will, Nara said immediately. No, her mother said firmly. I just got you back. I won't risk you again so soon. Mother, I know that ship better than anyone except Diho. You need me on this mission. They stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Ilyana sighed. You're as stubborn as I am, very well. But you'll also take Soman. Soman was a young Velkari pilot who had been studying Deho's hybrid technology with genuine interest. She stepped forward eagerly. I would be honored, Your Majesty. Then it's settled, Ilyana decided.
4 of you will go.
Bring those people home. 2 hours later, Deho's hybrid ship launched from the palace spaceport. The vessel was cramped with 4 people aboard, but it flew smoothly. Deho sat at the controls with Soman beside him, learning the systems. Nara and Junho sat behind them. The journey to the research station took 6 hours. As they approached the void storm field, the view outside became frightening. Purple and blue lightning crackled through space in massive waves. The storms were beautiful and deadly. Readings show the station is 300 kilometers inside the storm field. Soman reported, her voice tense. That's deep. Very deep. We've been deeper, Deho said calmly, adjusting the mechanical controls. Just stay focused and trust the instruments. As they entered the storm field, the ship began to shake. Lightning flashed around them, bright enough to hurt their eyes. Junho gripped his seat tightly, his face pale. All electronic systems are down, Soman announced. Navigation, computer, communication array, sensor grid. Everything just died. Expected, Deho said. We're flying mechanical now. Nara, start visual navigation. Look for the station. Nara moved to the observation window with a mechanical telescope. She scanned the space ahead carefully, calling out distances and directions while Deho adjusted their course manually. Junho watched Deho work, seeing the human's complete concentration. Every movement was precise and confident. This wasn't luck. This was skill. Station spotted, Nara called out. Bearing 275, distance approximately 100 kilometers. Got it, Deho confirmed, adjusting their heading. Soman, what's our fuel status? The young pilot checked the mechanical gauge. 70%. We're good. They flew deeper into the storm. The lightning got worse and the ship shook violently. Several times, massive electromagnetic waves passed directly through the ship. Everyone felt their hair stand on end from the static electricity. How do you stay calm in this? Junho asked, his voice tight. Practice, Deho replied simply, and accepting that some things are beyond your control. Focus on what you can control, and don't waste energy worrying about the rest. Finally, they reached the research station. It was a large structure built for long-term scientific work. But now it was dark and silent, tumbling slowly as the storm pulled it deeper. How do we dock? Soman asked. Without computers, we can't match their rotation. We do it the old way, Deho said. He turned the ship manually, matching the station's tumble through pure piloting skill. It took him 3 attempts, but finally they connected with a mechanical docking clamp. Everyone suit up, Nara ordered. We don't know what conditions are like inside. They put on environment suits and entered the station through the docking tube. Inside, emergency lighting provided dim illumination. The researchers were gathered in the main chamber, 70 frightened people wrapped in thermal blankets. One of them, a senior scientist, rushed forward. Thank the stars. We thought we were dead.
How did you get here?
Human technology, Nara said simply, pointing to Deho. We need to evacuate everyone quickly. The ship isn't large, so this will take multiple trips. Junho stepped forward, taking command. Despite his prejudice against Deho, he was still a military officer. Organize into groups of 15. We'll take the most injured first, then women, then everyone else. The evacuation began. Deho flew the first group of injured researchers back to the edge of the storm field, where Velkari rescue ships waited to receive them. Then he returned to the station for the second group. On the third trip, disaster struck. A massive electromagnetic wave hit the station, and the structure began tearing apart. The storm was pulling it deeper and the forces were too strong. We need to go now, Soman shouted. The station is breaking up. But there were still 30 people aboard. Daeho made a quick decision. Load everyone into the ship. All of them. It's too many, Junho protested. We'll be overloaded. The ship might not make it. Then we'll make it work, Daeho said firmly. I'm not leaving anyone behind. They crammed all 30 remaining people into the ship. It was impossibly crowded. People had to stand pressed against walls and hang on to anything bolted down. The ship's life support systems screamed with the load. As they undocked, part of the research station exploded behind them, hit by lightning. Debris slammed into their ship and warning lights flashed on the mechanical panels. Hull breach in the cargo bay, Soman reported. We're losing air. Seal the interior doors, Daeho ordered. We can survive without that compartment. He turned the ship toward safety, but they were too deep in the storm. The electromagnetic interference was overwhelming. Lightning struck them directly 3 times. Each time the ship shook violently and sparks flew from the mechanical systems. We're not going to make it, Junho said, his voice resigned. We're too heavy and too damaged. Daeho's hands moved over the controls, adjusting, compensating, and finding every bit of performance the ship could give. We'll make it. I didn't spend 15 years building this ship to fail now. Nara moved beside him, taking over the visual navigation. I see the edge of the storm. 3 kilometers ahead. Can you get us there? Daeho asked. Can you? She replied with a slight smile. Let's find out. Daeho pushed the ship harder than he had ever pushed it before. The mechanical engines groaned under the stress. The hull creaked and groaned. More warning lights appeared. Behind them, the research station finally broke apart completely, consumed by the storm. Ahead, safety was so close but still too far. Then something unexpected happened. Junho moved forward.
What can I do to help?
Daeho glanced at him in surprise. You want to help? I want to live, Junho said bluntly. And I'm starting to think you're the only one who can get us out of this. So tell me what to do. Manual fuel transfer, Daeho said immediately. There's a lever near your seat. Pump fuel from the auxiliary tanks to the main engines. It's hard work, but it'll give us extra thrust. Junho found the lever and started pumping. It was indeed hard work, requiring significant physical effort. But he kept going, his muscles straining. Soman was manually managing the power distribution, making sure every system got exactly what it needed. Nara was navigating and calling out obstacles. Daeho was piloting with absolute focus. And somehow, meter by meter, they crawled toward safety. When they finally broke free of the storm field, a cheer went up from the rescued researchers. Velkari rescue ships surrounded them immediately, ready to take everyone to safety. As they transferred the last of the researchers, Junho approached Daeho. The commander looked exhausted. His uniform soaked with sweat from the successful rescue made Daeho famous throughout the Velkari Empire. News broadcasts showed his ship returning with all 70 researchers alive. People called him a hero. The younger generation especially celebrated him as proof that humans had value, but not everyone was happy. High Advisor Minho sat in his private office, watching the news coverage with growing anger. The human was becoming too popular, too influential. People were starting to question the old ways, asking why the Velkari couldn't learn from humans. This was exactly what Minho had feared. For decades, Minho had maintained his power by controlling technology and information. He decided which innovations were adopted, which research received funding, and which ideas were suppressed. It was a system that kept him and his allies wealthy and powerful. Now this human threatened everything. If people realized that simple solutions could work as well as complex ones, they might start asking why everything was so complicated. They might discover that Minho and his faction had been suppressing simpler, cheaper technologies to maintain their monopoly. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Commander Junho entered, looking uncomfortable. High Advisor, we need to talk, Junho said. About what? Minho asked coldly. About your plans for the human. I know you're planning something. Minho studied Junho carefully. The commander has grown soft. One successful mission and suddenly you trust the alien? I was wrong about him, Junho admitted. I've seen him in action. He's not a threat. He's just trying to help. That's exactly what makes him dangerous, Minho said. He's changing how people think, making them question our superiority. If we don't stop this, the entire social structure could collapse. Or maybe we could learn from him, Junho suggested. Adapt and improve, like Princess Nara says. Minho's face hardened. You disappoint me, Commander. I thought you understood what was at stake. But if you won't help me, stay out of my way. Junho left the office troubled. He went immediately to find Princess Nara. He found her in the palace gardens with Daeho, Hyejin, Taeyang, and several other young courtiers. They were examining a broken water fountain, and Daeho was explaining how to fix it using simple tools instead of calling specialized technicians. Princess, I need to speak with you privately, Junho said urgently. Nara saw his expression and immediately knew something was wrong. She and Daeho followed Junho to a quiet corner of the garden. Minho is planning something, Junho said without preamble. Something against Daeho. I don't know the details, but I know it's bad. How bad? Nara asked. Bad enough that he told me to stay out of his way, Junho replied. I think he's going to try another assassination. Or frame Daeho for a crime, something to remove him permanently. Daeho absorbed this calmly. Why would he go so far? I'm just one person. You're a symbol, Junho explained. A symbol of change. And Minho's power depends on things staying the same. Nara's eyes flashed with anger. We need to tell my mother immediately. We need proof, Junho countered. Minho is too smart to leave evidence. If we accuse him without proof, he'll deny everything and turn the situation against us. Then we get proof. Daeho said quietly. We watch him carefully and wait for him to make a move. Over the next few days, they were very careful. Daeho never went anywhere alone. Nara assigned loyal guards to watch him constantly. Hyejin and Taeyang kept their ears open for rumors and suspicious activity. The attack came on the fourth day, but not in the way they expected. Hyejin burst into Nara's chambers early one morning, her face pale. Princess, there's been a theft. Someone broke into the royal vault last night and stole technology blueprints. Very sensitive blueprints for military weapons. How is that possible? Nara demanded. The vault has the best security in the Empire. That's not the worst part, Hyejin said, her voice shaking. They found evidence at the scene, a tool that matches the ones Daeho uses, and security footage shows someone of his height and build entering the vault. Nara felt her blood run cold. That's impossible. Daeho was with me all last night. We were reviewing engineering documents in the library. Can anyone else confirm that? Hyejin asked. Nara thought back. They had been alone in a private section of the library. No guards, no witnesses, just the two of them working late into the night. This is a setup, she said angrily. Someone is framing him. Obviously, Hyejin agreed. But proving it will be difficult. The evidence looks convincing. Within an hour, Commander Junho arrived with a squad of guards. He looked miserable as he approached Daeho. I'm sorry, Junho said quietly. I have orders to place you under arrest. The Queen's orders, not mine. I understand, Daeho said calmly. I expected this. I'm coming with you, Nara announced. Princess, please don't make this harder, Junho said. Let us handle this properly. He didn't do it, Nara said firmly, and I will prove it. They took Daeho to a holding cell in the palace security center. It wasn't a dungeon, but it was still a prison. Nara insisted on staying nearby, refusing to leave despite her mother's orders. Queen Ilyana convened an emergency council to review the evidence. The security footage was damning. It clearly showed someone matching Daeho's appearance entering the vault. The tool found at the scene had his fingerprints on it. The evidence is clear, Minho said gravely. The human was a spy all along. He manipulated the princess, gained our trust, and then stole our military secrets. I recommend immediate deportation to Earth, with a ban on all future human contact with our empire. That seems extreme, Queen Ilyana said carefully. Perhaps we should investigate further. What more do we need, Your Majesty? Minho pressed. His fingerprints are on the tool. The footage shows him clearly. He had access to the palace and knew where the vault was located. This was planned from the beginning. Nara stood abruptly. I was with Daeho last night. All night. He never left my sight. The council members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Minho's expression showed false concern. Princess, I understand your loyalty to your friend. But are you certain? You were in a private library section. Could he have left while you were distracted? No, Nara said firmly. We were working together constantly. He never left. Then perhaps you were helping him, one of the council members suggested quietly. Nara looked at the speaker with shock. You're accusing me of treason? No one is accusing anyone yet, Ilyana said quickly. But we must consider all possibilities. While the council debated, Hyejin and Taiyang were conducting their own investigation. They examined the security footage carefully, looking for anything unusual. There, Taiyang said suddenly, pointing at the screen. Look at how he walks. That's not Daeho's walk. Hyejin peered closer. Her brother was right. The figure in the footage moved differently than Daeho did. Daeho had a distinctive gait from years of working in low-gravity environments. This person walked like a Valkyrie. It's someone in disguise, Hyejin realized. Someone wearing a mask and costume to look like Daeho from a distance. They dug deeper into the security systems. Taeyang was skilled with computers and he found something interesting. The footage was edited, very professionally, but there are tiny inconsistencies in the timestamp data. Someone altered this recording. Can we prove it? Hyejin asked. Maybe, but it will take time. Time they didn't have. The council was already leaning toward convicting Daeho. Minho's arguments were persuasive, and without proof of innocence, the evidence looked damning. Then Somin, the young pilot, came forward with crucial information. She had been reviewing the technical specifications of the stolen blueprints. These designs are fake, she announced to the council. I've worked with military technology. These blueprints contain deliberate errors. They look real, but if anyone tried to build weapons from them, the weapons would fail. The council members looked confused. Minho's face paled slightly. Why would fake blueprints be in the royal vault? Queen Ilyana asked. They wouldn't, Somin said, unless someone put them there recently. Someone who planned to stage a theft. Minho stood abruptly. This is ridiculous speculation. The girl is just trying to help her human friend. Then let's examine the vault's access logs, Nara suggested. If the blueprints are fake and were placed recently, there should be a record of when they were added. The access logs are confidential, Minho said quickly. They require special authorization to review. I authorize it, Queen Ilyana said firmly. Bring me those logs immediately. 2 hours later, the truth emerged. The logs showed that someone with high advisor clearance had accessed the vault 3 days ago and added new files to the system. The clearance code belonged to Minho. When confronted, Minho tried to explain. I was conducting a security test, making sure our systems were secure. The fake blueprints were part of that test. Then why didn't you inform anyone? Ilyana demanded. Why let us accuse an innocent man? I was going to reveal the truth once we'd tested the palace's response, Minho claimed. This was all planned, but his story was falling apart. Hyejin and Taeyang presented their evidence of the edited security footage. Other investigators found the costume and mask used to impersonate Daeho, hidden in a storage area connected to Minho's office. Most damning of all, they discovered financial records. Minho had been embezzling funds from technology development programs for years. He had been suppressing innovations that the arrest of High Advisor Minho sent shockwaves through the Valkyrie Empire. For days, investigators uncovered more evidence of his corruption. He had manipulated technology policies for decades, enriching himself while holding back progress. The scandal touched dozens of officials, military officers, and corporate leaders who had benefited from his schemes. But Minho's supporters didn't accept defeat quietly. They saw the exposure of corruption as an attack on the traditional power structure. Many truly believed that maintaining Valkyrie superiority required controlling technology and limiting outside influence. 3 weeks after Minho's arrest, the situation exploded into violence. It started with protests in the capital city. Thousands of traditionalists marched through the streets demanding Minho's release and Daeho's deportation. They claimed the human had corrupted Princess Nara and was destroying Valkyrie culture. This is getting dangerous, Commander Junho said, watching the protests from the palace security center. The crowds are growing angrier. They're afraid, Daeho observed quietly. He stood beside Nara, watching the screen showing the protests. Change is scary. They don't know what will happen if the old systems collapse. Then we need to show them that change can be positive, Nara said. We need to prove that learning from humans makes us stronger, not weaker. But events moved faster than anyone expected. That night, military units loyal to Minho's faction staged a coup attempt. Led by several high-ranking officers who had profited from corruption, they seized control of the orbital defense platforms and several military bases. Their demands were simple. Release Minho, exile all humans from Valkyrie space, and return to the traditional ways. If the Queen refused, they would bombard the palace from orbit. Queen Ilyana stood in the command center, surrounded by loyal officers trying to assess the situation. How many units have joined the rebels? About 30% of the military, Junho reported grimly. They control the orbital platforms and 3 major bases. We have superior numbers, but they have the high ground. They won't actually fire on the palace, one general said confidently. It's a bluff. Don't be so sure, another general countered. These officers are desperate. They know if they lose, they'll be tried for treason. Deho studied the tactical displays thoughtfully. The rebel positions were strong. A direct assault would cost thousands of lives. A siege would take weeks, and the rebels could do massive damage in that time. There might be another way, he said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Nara recognized that expression on his face. It was the look he got when solving a seemingly impossible problem. I'm listening, Queen Ilyana said. The orbital platforms are automated systems controlled from a central command ship, Deho explained. If we could disable that ship, the platforms would shut down. The rebels would lose their main advantage. We know that, Junho said impatiently, but the command ship is in the middle of their fleet, protected by dozens of warships. We can't get close enough. A conventional ship can't, Deho agreed. But my hybrid ship isn't conventional. It's small, with minimal electronic signature. If we approached carefully using manual controls and no active sensors, we might slip through undetected. That's insane, a general protested. You'd be flying blind through a battle fleet. I've flown blind through worse, Deho reminded them. The Korath Nebula, remember? This is similar, just with warships instead of electromagnetic storms. It's too dangerous, Nara said immediately. I won't let you risk your life like that. Then come with me, Deho replied. You're the best co-pilot I know. Together we can do this. Nara started to argue, then stopped. She knew that expression too. He had already made up his mind. I'm going too, Junho announced. If this is happening, the Royal Guard should be represented. And I'm going, Soman added. You'll need someone to handle the technical systems once we reach the command ship. Queen Ilyana looked at the 4 of them. Her daughter, the human who had saved her daughter's life, her most loyal commander, and a brilliant young pilot. It was a strange team, but somehow it felt right. Do it, she ordered, and may fortune favor you. 2 hours later, Daiho's hybrid ship launched quietly from a secondary spaceport. They flew with all electronic systems shut down, using only mechanical controls and visual navigation. To any sensors, they would look like a piece of debris or a small asteroid. The approach took 3 tense hours. They drifted slowly through the rebel fleet, watching massive warships pass terrifyingly close. Several times, rebel patrols came so near that they could see the pilots in the cockpits. This is the stupidest thing I've ever done, Junho muttered, gripping his seat. Welcome to the human experience, Deho replied with a slight smile. We specialize in stupid plans that somehow work. Nara couldn't help but laugh quietly despite the danger. After 15 years with Deho, she had learned to trust his instincts. Finally, they reached the command ship. It was a massive vessel bristling with weapons and sensors, but because Deho's ship was running on minimal power, those sensors didn't detect them. They docked at a maintenance airlock that the rebels probably didn't even know existed. Deho had found it by studying the ship's public technical specifications. Sometimes, he reflected, people overlooked the simple things. They entered the command ship wearing combat suits and carrying weapons. Yuno took point, his military training showing. They moved through the maintenance corridors quietly, avoiding the main passages where rebel crew members worked. The main computer core should be 3 levels up, Somin whispered, checking a portable schematic. They climbed through maintenance shafts and utility corridors. Several times they had to hide while crew members passed nearby. Once they were almost discovered when a technician entered a compartment where they were hiding. Yunyo knocked him out silently before he could raise an alarm. When they reached the computer core, they found it heavily guarded. 6 armed soldiers stood outside the main entrance. We can't fight our way through, Nara said. There are too many, and the noise would alert the whole ship. We don't need to fight, Daiho said. He pointed to a ventilation duct above the guards. There's always another way in. They climbed through the duct, which was barely large enough for them to crawl through. It opened into the computer core itself, a massive room filled with processing equipment and display screens. 2 technicians sat at consoles, monitoring the orbital platforms. They didn't notice the 4 intruders dropping silently from the vent behind them. Junho moved first, disarming both technicians before they could react. Soman rushed to the main console. "I need time to disable the platform safely," she said, her fingers flying over the controls. "If I just shut them down, they might fall out of orbit and crash into populated areas." "How much time?" Nara asked, standing guard at the door. 5 minutes. "Maybe 10. We might not have that long," Junho said. "They'll notice something is wrong soon." He was right. Less than 2 minutes later, alarms started blaring. The guards outside the door began trying to force it open. Junho and Nara barricaded it with heavy equipment, but it wouldn't hold long. "Faster would be good," Daeho said calmly, though his hand rested on his weapon. "Almost there," Somin muttered. "Just need to reroute the safety protocols and done." The orbital platforms shut down one by one, their weapons going offline. Down on the planet, loyal forces immediately moved to secure them before the rebels could restart them. "Now we need to get out of here," Junho said as the door began to buckle. But they were trapped. The only exit was through that door, and dozens of armed rebels waited on the other side. "The ventilation shaft," Nara suggested. "They'll be watching it now," Junho replied. "We're stuck." Daeho looked around the computer core thoughtfully. Then he smiled. "No, we're not. Soman, can you access the ship's internal communication system from here?" "Yes, why?" "Broadcast a message. Tell the rebel crew that the orbital platforms have been captured by loyalist forces. Tell them the coup has failed and anyone who surrenders now will receive mercy. Make it official sounding." Soman quickly crafted the message and broadcast it throughout the ship. For a moment nothing happened. Then they heard confused voices outside the door. "Is it true?" someone asked. "I don't know. Check the tactical displays." The rebels checked and confirmed that the orbital platforms were indeed offline, now controlled by loyalist forces. Without those platforms, the rebel fleet was vulnerable. The coup really had failed. Slowly, the sounds of fighting outside the door quieted. The rebels were surrendering. When Junho finally opened the door, he found the rebel soldiers standing with their weapons lowered. They knew the fight was over. The rebel fleet surrendered within the hour. Without the orbital platforms, they had no hope of winning. The officers who had led the coup were arrested. The ordinary soldiers, who had mostly followed orders, were treated with mercy as Daeho had promised. Minho, watching from his cell, realized his last gambit had failed. The human had defeated him again, not with superior technology, but with clever thinking and the ability to turn enemies against each other. When Daeho's team returned to the palace, they received a hero's welcome. Queen Ilyana greeted them personally, embracing her daughter and shaking hands with each of them. "You saved the Empire," she said to Daeho. "Again, how can we 6 months passed like water flowing through open hands?" The Velkari Empire transformed slowly but steadily, like a giant ship changing course. The changes were not always smooth, but they were real. Daeho stood on a balcony in the palace watching the sunrise over the capital city. The sky was a beautiful shade of purple, different from Earth's blue but lovely in its own way. He had grown to appreciate this world, though he still missed his home planet sometimes. "You're up early," Nara said, joining him on the balcony. She wore formal robes today, bearing the symbols of her new position. 3 months ago, her mother had officially named her heir to the throne. "Couldn't sleep," Daeho admitted. "Big day today. Today, Earth and the Velkari Empire would sign a formal alliance. It had taken months of negotiation, compromise, and patience. But finally, both governments had agreed to work together, sharing knowledge and resources for mutual benefit." "Nervous?" Nara asked. "A little," Daeho confessed. "I'm just an engineer. I never expected to be part of something this important." "You're not just an engineer," Nara said firmly. "You're the person who made all of this possible. Without you, we would still be isolated, scared of change, slowly falling behind. You showed us a better way." Down in the throne room, preparations were well underway for the signing ceremony. Queen Ilyana supervised everything personally, making sure every detail was perfect. This was a historic moment, and she wanted it done right. Commander Junho arrived early wearing his new uniform. After the coup attempt, he had been promoted to general and given command of military reform efforts. He had embraced the role enthusiastically, working to integrate human tactical thinking with Velkari technology. "Everything is secure," he reported to the Queen. "No threats detected. This ceremony will proceed safely." "Thank you, Junho," Ilyana said. Over the months, she had come to value his loyalty and his ability to change his thinking when presented with evidence. Hyejin and Taiyang arrived together, both wearing diplomatic robes. They had been appointed as official liaisons to Earth, responsible for coordinating the new exchange programs. Both were excited about the opportunity to visit Earth and learn about human culture firsthand. "Have you heard the news?" Hyejin asked Taiyang excitedly. 300 Velkari students applied for the Earth exchange program. "We can only take 50 this year, but that number shows how much attitudes have changed. And 200 human students applied to study here," Taiyang added. "People are eager to learn from each other." Soman rushed past them carrying technical equipment. She was now the head of the Hybrid Technology Institute, a new research center dedicated to combining human and Velkari engineering approaches. At only 25 years old, she was one of the youngest department heads in Imperial history. "The demonstration is ready," she announced. "We'll show the Earth delegates what we've accomplished together." In a laboratory attached to the throne room, Soman's team had prepared an impressive display. They had created new ship designs that combined human simplicity with Velkari power, medical devices that worked in any environment, communication systems that couldn't be jammed, dozens of innovations born from cooperation. The Earth delegation arrived at midday. They came in a small fleet of ships led by Ambassador Park, a veteran diplomat who had pushed hard for this alliance. With her was Admiral Kim, representing Earth's military, and Dr. Han, a scientist eager to see what joint research could achieve. Daeho greeted them personally, feeling strange to see so many humans after spending so long among aliens. They seemed smaller than he remembered, more fragile. But he knew that was an illusion. Humans were stronger than they looked, Daeho. Ambassador Park said warmly, shaking his hand. "You look well. We were worried when you disappeared all those years ago." "I survived," Daeho said with a slight smile, "and I learned a lot." "You did more than survive," Admiral Kim said, looking around at the palace. "You changed an entire empire. That's quite an achievement." The formal ceremony began in the afternoon. The throne room was packed with nobles, officials, and representatives from dozens of worlds that the Velkari Empire had relations with. Everyone wanted to witness this historic moment. Queen Ileana sat on her throne with Princess Nara standing beside her. The Earth delegation stood before them, with Daeho serving as a bridge between the two groups. "Today marks a new chapter in galactic history," Ileana began, her voice carrying through the hall. "For too long, we believed that strength came from isolation, from keeping our knowledge to ourselves. We thought that being superior meant being separate." She looked at Daeho as she continued. "Then one human showed us differently. He showed us that true strength comes from cooperation, that sharing knowledge makes everyone stronger, that differences between species are not weaknesses to overcome, but strengths to embrace." Ambassador Park stepped forward. "Earth is honored to join in this alliance. Humanity has much to learn from the Velkari Empire. Your science, your culture, and your history span thousands of years. We are young by comparison, still finding our place in the galaxy. But youth brings fresh perspectives," Nara added. "You solve problems in ways we never considered. You adapt and overcome where we would declare something impossible. That creativity, that refusal to accept limitations is valuable beyond measure." The formal documents were signed with great ceremony. As each leader added their signature, the crowd applauded. When it was done, Queen Ileana stood and raised her hand for silence. "To commemorate this alliance, we announce a new initiative. The Joint Innovation Program will bring together the best minds from both our peoples to tackle the greatest challenges facing the galaxy. We will map safe routes through dangerous regions. We will develop technology that benefits all species. We will explore the unknown together." The crowd erupted in applause. It was a bold vision, ambitious and exciting. Many people there remembered when the idea of cooperating with humans would have been laughable. Now it seemed natural, even necessary. After the formal ceremony ended, a celebration began. Music played, food was served, and people from different worlds mingled and talked. It was chaotic but joyful. Daeho found himself surrounded by people wanting to talk to him, shake his hand, and thank him. It was overwhelming. He slipped away quietly, finding peace in the palace gardens. He wasn't alone for long. Nara found him there, as he knew she would. "Running away from your own party?" she asked with amusement. "Just taking a break," Daeho replied. "I'm not used to being the center of attention." They sat together on a bench looking up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. They had spent many nights like this during their 15 years together, talking about everything and nothing. "What will you do now?" Nara asked quietly. "The alliance is signed. Your work here is done. Will you go home to Earth?" Deho considered the question. He had thought about it a lot lately. Earth called to him, the home he had left so long ago. But this place had become a home too. "I thought about it," he admitted. "I miss Earth, my family, my friends, the places I knew. It's been 16 years since I left." "But?" Nara prompted, hearing the unspoken word. "But the work here isn't finished," Deho said. "The alliance is just the beginning. There are still people who oppose it, still attitudes that need to change, and there's so much we can accomplish together if we keep trying." He looked at Nara seriously. "Also, you're here. After 15 years together, I can't imagine just walking away. You're my best friend, Nara. Maybe my only real friend." Nara smiled, but there were tears in her eyes. "You're my best friend too. More than that, you're family. You saved my life. You taught me to see the galaxy differently, and you stood by me when everything fell apart. I don't want to lose you." "Then you won't," Deho promised. "I'll stay. Not forever, maybe. Someday I'll need to visit Earth again. But for now, this is where I'm needed." "What about starting a family?" Nara asked carefully. "Having children, growing old with someone? Don't you want those things?" Deho laughed softly. "Maybe someday. But right now I have everything I need. A purpose, friends I trust, and the chance to make a real difference. That's enough." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Nara spoke again, her voice thoughtful. "You know, when I was trapped in that nebula waiting to die, I thought my life was over. I thought I would be forgotten, just another lost princess in a tragic story." She looked at Deho with gratitude. "But you didn't let me die. You saved me. And together we did something neither of us could have done alone. We proved that cooperation is stronger than isolation. That's a legacy worth having." "We're not done yet," Deho reminded her. "This is just the beginning. Think about what we can accomplish in the next 10 years, the next 20. We can change how species interact throughout the galaxy." Nara nodded slowly. "You're right. And I want you beside me for all of it. As a royal advisor officially, but more importantly, as my partner in making this vision real." Back in the palace, the celebration continued. But people began noticing that Deho and Nara were missing. Hyejin smiled knowingly when Taeyang asked where they went. "Leave them alone," she said. "They've earned some peace," Commander Junho agreed. "Those two changed everything. Let them have this moment.